Okay, so I finished my pencil layout. Then I, again with the pencil, redid it because sometimes you're still working some little things out. And now you would think that I'm going to start brush lettering this. But no, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do some basic strokes, and I'll tell you why. This is the secret. I am using a Pentel color brush. So I've been working on the computer a lot, and when I've been working on the computer and I haven't been lettering every day, I find that my hand gets a little rusty. So just like a beginner, I go back to the basics of making basic strokes, because it's like doing a warm-up if you're going to go run or do any kind of exercise. You want to get your muscle warmed up. You want to ignite the memory in the muscle, remind it what you want it to do. And just like anything, sometimes you just go back to the basics and put in the practice. So this is not glamorous. This is not impressive. No one's going to ooh and ah because I'm just showing you myself lettering the piece. Instead, I'm giving you what I think is really valuable information to help you understand that doing these things first, laying it out in pencil, going back to basic strokes, all of these things are part of the process that allow you to actually execute the piece the way that you want to. I will say this, if you are lettering every single day for hours, you're pretty much, your hand is warm, as soon as you start the day. But like most of us, if you have other things going on in your life and you take time away from lettering, then your hand gets a little cold. So you need to go back and do the basics to get it warmed up again. And I am happy to give anyone this exemplar if you want it. Just send me a DM with your email and I'll send it to you. Because again, I see so many people that are trying to learn lettering and they're watching videos of people doing it beautifully, and they're not understanding that this is really what's behind all that. I'm also going to point out something you can't see. I'm sitting straight up with my feet on the floor and I'm bent slightly over my paper, and I've got my non-lettering hand holding the paper down, and I'm holding the brush itself in this with these 3 fingers. And so if you can, this is actually the more ergonomic way to hold the brush. And now I'm going to start on getting those real thicks and thins happening. So I call this exercise the roller coaster. And I stop, and if I have to, I move the paper or my hand. And now we'll move on to spirals. And you're putting pressure down, releasing it as you come up, putting pressure down, releasing it as you come up. And your goal is to try to create uniform, as much as possible, spaces in between these thick lines. So you're paying attention to negative space as well as positive space. And now we'll move into just some of these basic strokes that are what you would find in a lot of the letters. Going up thin and down thick. And this kind of U shape that could also be a W shape. And the O, which actually starts over here, not there, so that we have the correct weight of the letter where it needs to be. So we're just making all these different marks. We'll do that one up as well, because these are all basic marks that you'll make in letter making. And again, sometimes I'm going to move the paper so that the brush and the stroke is coming into my body as much as possible. That gives me the most control over the tool, whatever tool I'm using. And you can kind of identify parts of an R, parts of an S. So by the end of the page, I can start to feel like I'm getting the control that I want over the brush. So that is that portion of my project. And next I'll be lettering the actual piece. Okay, so I did my first run through with the Pentel color brush on tracing paper, and now I'm doing another. We always want to palette the brush, which means we're turning it and trying to get that point to be as thin as possible. That helps us get those thicks and thins, especially the thins. And I have my feet flat on the floor, and I'm sitting up straight, leaning slightly forward over the table. And you can see I lost some ink flow there, but don't stop. You can always go back and fill that in. And because I am not doing this as an original piece, I'm going to take it into Photoshop and clean it up, so you don't stress about those little things as much. And if you're more comfortable, stop after a stroke and go back in. I know sometimes people think, it's all written out perfectly without stopping, but that is not usually the case. In fact, it's often good to stop after a stroke to make sure that your brush is in the right position, your hand is in the right position. And I'm going to point out I'm holding my brush with these 3 fingers, and my pinky serves as kind of the driver. So this doesn't move as much as this. In that case, this part did move, but if I'm making a flowing movement, I'm relying more on this part of my hand. I'm going to hold off on crossing the T because that's wet, and so I might accidentally grab some of that wet. So I was a little bit too thin coming up there, so I went back and thickened that up. And I'm going to come here and add a little bit more weight there. I will speed up part of this, but I'm going to show you some parts where I am not speeding up because I want you to see the time that I take to make each letter. I also like to make 2 T's or 2 L's, make the second one slightly taller because our eye just naturally likes to move in that direction. So it's more pleasing to our eye. I'm going to hold off on adding that flourish because again, this is probably wet, so I don't want to smear it. So we'll come back to that. I'm making this stroke, let me get a little bit thicker here, and I move the paper because it gives me more control over the brush. Although I didn't do exactly what I wanted to do. Come up a little bit more. And again, if this was something that needed to be done on as an original, this would be one of many. So I could do this 5 times, 6 times. It kind of depends on, you know, how your hand is doing that day. So sometimes you might get it in 2 times, but generally speaking, unless you are lettering every single day, which I do a lot of font making now, so I'm not doing as many projects that are hand lettered for as originals. So that means that my hand gets cold and a little rusty. Okay, I'm going to come in and do this T. So I want to be careful of the wet spots there. Which is another reason why I'm turning the paper. I might have turned it a different way had I not been trying to avoid some of the wet spots, but because I'm trying to do this in a timely manner for this video, I'm making some adjustments to how I move the paper. So now I put the G on, come into the stroke. Okay, this is the real process. So I hope this was helpful. And if you would like my lettering exemplar, either this or I also have one for the whole alphabet, just DM me with your email address. I'd be happy to send it to you. Okay, have a great day and thanks for watching.